Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sharon Pender, President and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council, and welcome to our Hot Sheet Live, our pandemic newsletter geared toward minority businesses. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. Speaking of hot, we have a hot topic today with some hot speakers. It's a fireside chat with the DMV's leading advocates. And so there's truth in advertising. This is going to be a great filled hour. We're going to start at the bottom of the hour at 9:30. So just in case, you got just a couple of minutes to grab a cup of coffee. We always say it's 5 o'clock somewhere. If you want to grab that mimosa, we won't tell. But also make sure you know where the exits are in your location. We know that we're sheltered in, but wherever you are, make sure you also know where the bathrooms are as well. But seriously, we have a Southwest giveaway, as well as talking to some folks that I'll introduce you in just a moment. Be back at 9:30. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, it's 9:30 and we're ready to rock and roll. I just wanted to discuss a couple things with you this morning. If you want to hit us up on social media, it's at Nmsdc. But we're grateful this morning, rather, to have some great speakers, and we anticipate a great conversation. If you want to ask questions, and thank you, by the way, for folks who have sent your questions in advance. But during this conversation, if you want to ask questions, there's that question icon or situation that you can ask questions as we go through this chat. And I want to talk about the agenda this morning. And again, I'm Sharon Pender, President and CEO of Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council. And our agenda this morning is filled with, again, conversations of people I want to introduce you to. But as we kind of move forward, let me bring on camera our guest for today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for showing up here. And we'll get back to the presentation in just a moment. But I want to introduce you to some great folks that are with us today. Very good. Thank you. Where is Secretary Jimmy Rhee? Good morning, Jimmy. Secretary Reid was appointed.
Hi, Sharon.
Okay, just great. Glad you're here. Secretary Reid was appointed to the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs, which has now changed its name to the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women's Business Affairs by Governor Larry Hogan. He's responsible for the policy and oversight of the state's minority business program and the Small Business Reserve. It just warms my heart to see that, Jimmy. This SBR is still in existence and alive and well. Secretary Reid coordinates compliance activities with over 70 participating procurement agencies while simultaneously working on Maryland's business community to expand opportunities for small, minority, and women-owned firms seeking to perform as prime contractors and/or subcontractors on state funded procurements. Prior to this appointment, Secretary Rhee served as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade for the Commonwealth of Virginia, where he presided over international trade and investment activities with direct nexus to job creation. Looking forward to our conversation, Jimmy. And you are, of course, one of my favorite people, and so glad to have you here. And so another one of my all-time favorites is Director Tracy G. Wiley.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tracy. How are you?
Great.
Tracy is the director of the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. Her role in the agency is to energize state agencies. That sounds, you got to tell me about that. How do you energize state agencies? SWAM champions buyers, procurement professionals to be more inclusive while competing for existing and new contracts, and to broaden their supply chains with new certified supplier. And I'm proud to say, prior to her accepting this appointment, and this is actually your second round, correct? You've
Yes.
served now under your second governor. Now, those who understand that that is very interesting, particularly in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But she sat in this seat as the president and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council. And then before that, she was the president and CEO of at the time it was called the Virginia,
Yes.
the Virginia Council. Very, very good. And so she drank the Kool-Aid some time ago, and we're glad she's here today. We now also have Director Christy Whitfield, the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development. And she serves as that department's director, and she's an executive, an entrepreneur, an urban planner, and over 20 years of experience of implementing change. So I would say that seems like you're a change agent. But she builds affordable housing for vulnerable families, and she has designed and implemented classes for aspiring entrepreneurs, so well-rounded. She taught classes on economic literacy and micro business startup, and has administered $65 million pool of funds dedicated to improving neighborhoods. She created training opportunities to help current employees for better jobs. And of course, all of these folks have resumes as long as a horse that would choke you, that we won't take up the time. But rounding out this group of folks is one of our favorite, all-time favorite, long-term standing partners, and that is Karen Price, who worked with Southwest Airlines. Karen is a 25-year Southwest employee and community outreach strategic relationship national lead. Let me say that again. Southwest Employee and Community Outreach Strategic Relationships National Lead. Is that correct, Karen? I couldn't remember. She's responsible for driving Southwest citizenship efforts by leveraging strategic investments and national and local relationships to connect people and champion communities, of which we're one of the champion communities. She is charged with developing the community outreach strategy to invest in workforce development to nurture careers in the aviation industry by developing a pipeline of diverse talent. Also, she is focused on building community outreach civic engagement strategy to promote economic health, empowering communities to thrive throughout the Southwest network of 101 destinations. And all of these folks, ladies and gentlemen, will take turns in terms of our conversation and chat today. And Karen will have a surprise, but you've got to be present to win. And that comes later on during our chat. So look, in front of you is the agenda. And we're going to start with Secretary Reid, and those are our guests. We're going to have the Southwest, and then, but along the way, we're going to have the opportunity to ask questions. So let's get started. And Secretary Reid, will you kind of join me? And I'll see you ladies kind of later. We always ask Secretary, we always ask a poll question that's kind of relative to what we're trying to engage in. You can relate to this as well, because we want to understand, first of all, our audience, but we also want to understand what are some of the issues and get past the anecdotal part. And so for the folks that are with us today, for MBEs only, if you're MBE, can you answer this question? In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, what help does your business need to survive? And if you could answer that question, that would be an awesome thing. And we'll be right, and we'll get that right with you. Okay, so Shauna, we seem to, you have some polling results. Is that what I'm seeing right now? Okay, for the
That's
people
correct.
that are here, and we'll be able to get that number later, but it seems like there is, and let me move this. I can see, okay. So Jimmy, what do you think? So it seems like
It
there's,
looks like, yeah, everybody needs to identify post-COVID-19 opportunities. That seems to be the dominant response, correct?
It seems to be, yeah, for the folks that are taking the quick poll, it does
Yeah.
seem, but it also seems that there might be some help needed for some more financial help to survive. So let's talk about that just a little bit today too, Jimmy.
Yeah, well,
And
financial support-wise, I think everybody knows about the CARES Act, obviously, and also the governor has put certain amount of money initially, very quickly after the lockdown, even prior to the CARES Act. But unfortunately, we have received so many applications, about 20,000, the Department of Commerce had to create a separate office just to process the application, okay? So the need was great, and obviously the resource ran out, so Commerce is no longer taking the application right now as we speak. Now, Governor has put forth additional $50 million, which will be available after July 20th, and Commerce will process the application on a first-come, first basis with the applications that were already submitted, okay? They're not taking in new applications. So there's a great need for capital. But based on your response here, I see that the people are more concerned with the future going forward. How do I prep my business going forward? But one thing
but
seems certain. Yeah, go ahead.
can I, before you leave that, let's go back to what you talked about. The governor just announced the other day the $50 million loan. Is it loan or any of that grants?
Well, I think it was both. The loan and grant was both in there, right? One was given to the, if I remember correctly, about 40 million, 5 million to the MSBIFA. That's
Right.
loan, right? And $40-some million to nonprofits. I believe that's sort of a grant money there. But again, I think that money will probably be flow to the applications that were already submitted, okay?
Right.
Because they're not taking any applications, and that is a huge issue. Apparently that the resource obviously is scarce right now, given that the state is looking perhaps about a 30% budget shortfall, okay? The revenue is not coming in because of the lockdown, obviously. So the governor is doing the best he could, possibly under the circumstance, to put emphasis on the priority items. Yeah.
So Jimmy, Secretary Rhee, I know that, for example, the MSBIFA, that $5 million that's going to MSBIFA, that's new money. And it sounds like what the governor is doing is making sure it's targeted toward a CDFI type situation where it can be more targeted, I would imagine, toward smaller minority businesses in that case as well. Is that a correct assumption?
That is correct. That is correct assumption. I think it is trying to target those people that were not covered by the CARES Act, because we all know that the money did not flow down where it was supposed to, originally envisioned. And a lot of the small businesses that truly needed capital did not get money, okay?
Right.
But we had news, as you well know, even lobbying firms in DC have received CARES Act money, but small business, minority-owned businesses that are working very hard in places like Prince George's County and Baltimore City did not. So this governor is trying to do his best as far as to, that these businesses somehow have some access to capital, and that's what he's done. Yeah.
And I think you can stay tuned to see what information will be available in terms of those loans. But going back to what you were talking about, the other question around opportunities, what resources and support for minority businesses are available, and what is your organization doing around helping businesses sustain during this pandemic situation we had?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, Maryland already has a very strong history of inclusion, right? With programs such as MBE, the oldest of such socioeconomic program in the country, and Small Business Reserve, where only small companies could become prime contractors. And of course, we cannot ignore the veteran small business entities, which we also monitor in our office. And these are good pipelines. And so what we have done in our office is we're trying to strengthen these programs by emphasizing the importance of small business procurement programs by putting forth certain categories of purchases. Like category 1 and category 2 are considered a small orders below $15,000 threshold. And they are perfect I guess the orders for small companies or small entities, because after $15,000, right? They receive different kinds of scrutiny because they meet the threshold, which are subject to formal bidding rules. But anything below $15,000, there's a lot of flexibility. So during the last Governor's Commerce Sub-Cabinet meeting, which I am the original member along with 5 other departments, point on procurement officers that they need to follow up with small bidders and request supplemental information rather than just accepting the best bid package, okay, that they receive from typically incumbents and so on. Now, why is that important? Following up with the additional information is because if procurement people do not do that, there are certain consequences, which is that incumbent always win because incumbents, they know better, okay? They intimately know what the state is looking for, whereas the new companies may not. So we need to ensure by following up with additional information requests that all small companies that are competing in the state arena for the first time have equal opportunity to compete for small procurements. So that's good for local multiplier effect as well, because tax money circulates locally, right? So right. That's one thing we do. But second thing that we are doing right now is we are sort of working with all agencies to complete their current annual procurement forecast. This is a pipeline, right?
Right.
And data includes all projected purchases of $100,000 and above for this coming fiscal year. So it's very important tool for small business community. And just to indicate how important this tool is, if you look at our website, our office used to be called GOMA, which you well know, but now they call us GOSBA, right? GOSBA. Other than the home page, this page that shows the annual procurement forecast is the most visited page on our website. Okay, so it is very. Go ahead.
And how can they find that information? That
go to GoMD small.
Okay, Shauna, can you go back to the previous slide because I think Secretary Reid's information was there. I apologize. And so on here, Secretary Reid, are some resources. Is this what you're referencing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just come. Yeah, that's perfect. Go mdsmallbusiness.maryland.gov. That is our website, and people should definitely check that out. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to open all other departments as well, so I think it's very resourceful page there, right?
And so if they go there, they can also see what you were just referencing in terms of the forecast of some of the other agencies. That's perfect. We're going to open it up for a couple of questions for Secretary Rhee. And just a couple of things, ladies and gentlemen. There are a lot of questions we aren't going to get to today, but what we commit to do after every one of our webinars is to address all the questions and then we post them. So we're going to take a couple of questions right now for Secretary Rhee. Well, we have questions.
Yes,
Kenna?
hello.
Okay, Sonia. Mhm.
Yes, we've had some great questions come in thus far and some that were submitted in advance. Secretary Rhee, there is a question around, is there any funding, loan, or economic assistance that you would advise or suggest for minority businesses in the startup and growth mode?
In a startup and growth mode, okay, I presume that person is asking for, rather than debt-based money, the person is asking for equity-based money because of startup. There'll be a huge difference between the two, obviously, right? Because if you are talking about equity-based, you're talking about a venture capitalist and, different kinds of money. But if you're looking for a debt-based money, I think right now there are still some money that's left over from the Federal CARES Act, not just from the SBA, but also from the Treasury as well, right? I
Right.
think Treasury has about $200 billion left, still that needs to be lent out somehow. And locally we have few banks that are participating in the small business lending, and I think on Department of Commerce's website, there are like a local participating banks list. I think the person should definitely check that out, right? And also, I think another thing that the Federal Reserve is doing, and if you remember, if you look at the Main Street and Wall Street right now, things don't align, right? The things are very tough on the Main Street, but stock market seems to be doing very well. And the reason is because the Federal Reserve has provided liquidity into the marketplace. So the stocks are doing well, and Fed is doing something which they have never done, which is to actually buying corporate bonds and things like that. So Federal Reserve has a new program called New Market Funding, which I think they are going to work with the small businesses to lend money to small businesses, right? And that is a program I hope to see sort of spread out a little bit more and become more popular, because a lot of people don't know about it. But I don't want to get into the program, but Federal Reserve also has programs right now for small businesses. Yeah.
And so some of the local jurisdictions as well. Secretary Rhee, we asked if you could, I know how busy your schedule is, and thank you for your time today. We ask if you can stay around for our general chat toward the end of this hour. We certainly will appreciate it.
Yes.
So thank you. And what I'm going to do right now is bring on Director Tracey Wiley.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Director Wiley, certainly, again, glad you're here today for a number of different reasons. But what I'm going to do right now, I know that you have some specific information that you're going to provide for us today. So I'm going to just pass the baton for you to give us some of your wisdom here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate joining in the partnership this morning with the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, and for being online this morning with Jimmy Rhee and Christy Whitfield that I've just met. It's so good to be able to be in partnership with our the folks around us. And so I think from the governor to what we're doing today, it's a good partnership. So thank you. So I will start with the first slide. I just got a couple of slides I want to run through because I know that everybody is not familiar with our agency, but I wanted to give you a little more information. Next slide. Our agency is a state agency of the Commonwealth, certainly, and it sits within the Secretariat of Commerce and Trade. And so the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity really is an agency that's looking to grow our small women and minority-owned businesses. We're looking at helping them with increased revenue and job creation. The agency supports what's called the Virginia Small Business and Financing Authority, where we manage $55 million in assets through direct and indirect loan opportunities. And I'll give you a little bit more information on how that is beneficial to the businesses going forward. Of course, you mentioned that we manage the state program for small women and minority-owned businesses through certification, as well as the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program for certification, supporting heavy highway construction and transportation. And then, of course, I think as most agencies do, we have a strong business development and outreach services component where we have business services managers in every region of the state. And they put on workshops and attend conferences and provide one-on-one opportunities for our businesses. And then the thing that we love the most is our activity with our advocates of state agencies and our corporate partners, where we get to look at policy and to generate new legislation that impacts small businesses. Next slide. So I want to take a different approach than what was shared originally by some of the other panelists, because Virginia took the approach that early on at the onset of the pandemic, that we would provide a little more communications to our more than 700 small businesses in Virginia. So we didn't have any funding early on, but we did have the opportunity to continue to communicate with the businesses on a daily and weekly basis, making sure that they had information and guidance on the EIDL loan and the Paycheck Protection programs, that we were gleaning information from our local corporate and municipality partners to make sure that there was information out there on what was happening in terms of available funding. So our teams were working with them one-on-one, virtually, making sure that we could participate with our partners on these workshops. Our capacity building programs continue to run strong. Our Scaling for Growth went from an in-class instruction pardon me, to a virtual instruction, not missing a beat, and making sure those businesses that were impacted by the pandemic that were in our classes continue to be able to receive information on how they could pivot. And I'm happy to say that as a result of that virtual environment, they were able to graduate. So we graduated 16 businesses during the pandemic. We can talk about that through question and answer.
Mhm.
Next slide. What's really important, and this is the last two slides that I'll share, and then certainly you can ask questions where appropriate, is that because we didn't have any initial funding, we made it a point to adjust some of our funding products through our financing authority for our existing customers. So we were able to defer monthly loan payments and principal interest. We were able to extend loan maturities for some of our customers through our SWAM micro loan. And then we also support a child care program that was very significant for businesses through the pandemic, and we lowered those interest rates, reduced to 0%. And so having done those things while we didn't have the initial funding opportunity, we were able to impact those businesses that were trying to continue operations. And then the last slide really just does speak to the fact that the General Assembly saw the need to adjust one of our bills that had come through through the regular session in February, to adjust the guidelines on the monies that we were requesting to administer $700,000 for an emergency grant. That grant came through House Bill 1505, and it was an amendment for small businesses. It will provide funding for applicants up to $5,000. And it really is directed at those businesses impacted by Executive Order 53 for small women and minority-owned businesses, also including veteran-owned businesses. Of course, by definition, those are businesses that are 25 or less and gross up to 1.5 million in revenue. And these are mostly for the businesses that have a principal place of operations here in Virginia. But we wanted to impact those businesses that were affected. And so that's restaurants, and we've got some fitness centers and personal care and personal grooming, entertainment, and public amusement. But in particular, our small women and minority-owned businesses we know have been impacted. And so that's sort of a quick high level of some of the things that we've done so far. We've got some things on the horizon that the administration is working through in terms of strategy for the recovery effort. We were trying to align our funding opportunity with the start and finish of the PPP. So we expect that some new things are coming soon.
Director Wiley, and thank you for that information. Director Wiley, how did you see, were you able to get any data from the SBA relative to those businesses, minority businesses in particular, and I understand the small business piece of that were not able to receive funding? Did you get a chance to see any of that? at all?
So we've been pulling together data across our secretariat. So our Virginia Economic Development and Partnership has pulled data from the start of the pandemic, and we noted that, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% of the businesses, you know, the small business in the small business category as well as the minority business category were not able to access federal funding opportunities. So that is where we are spending our time and energies on making funding available in Virginia. So when announcements come forward, those monies will be directed to businesses that were most impacted in those categories.
What about opportunities? How can our businesses find about opportunities?
So our agency works in direct concert with the Department of General Services. At the agency, I know sometimes people think that we do procurement as well, but it's a little different in Virginia where they've separated the functions. And so we serve as the administrative portion of the procurement process, and then we work in concert with Department of General Services. But we've had a great relationship during this pandemic, and they have worked in concert with us and the Virginia Emergency Management Services. So there were a number of opportunities that came forth for PPE, for all the supplies that Virginia was looking for, and a number of our businesses got a chance to take advantage of some of that, especially those that pivoted their companies to provide products and services that were needed in Virginia. So I would suggest that businesses go directly to the Department of General Services and they register or look at our EVA procurement opportunities. There is a dashboard for future opportunities there, but there's also a dashboard connected to what is needed through Virginia Emergency Management. I believe the state spent in upwards of about $12 million with businesses during the pandemic around procurement.
Right. And we had the emergency management director on a couple of webinars ago. And so that's great to connect those dots. And we're going to take a couple of questions. And before Sonia or Ken starts, I see a correlation between when you look at the Commonwealth of Virginia, and of course, what Secretary Rhee was talking about, and the governor is making decisions around, because there's a holistic view, right? We want to know what funding's available, but then there's the housing piece. And then, you know, there's the other pieces of that that totally impact too. And when we look at minority businesses, we also look at the other parts of life that impacts them as well. Not only where the contract opportunities, but how does that, you know, the workforce piece and the housing piece and all of that. But let's take a couple of questions, if we could, Director Wiley. Sonia.
Good morning, Director Wiley, Ken Clark. I'd like to ask a couple questions. One, what are you doing to address the disparity in contracting? Right now, there's so much emphasis on the fact, and clearly emphasis on the fact that there is a great disparity in health outcomes as well as financial outcomes for minority businesses in this time of COVID. What things is Virginia doing to address disparity?
So thank you, Kim, for that question. Of course, you know, when our funding opportunities open up, we have made some intentional guidelines around, or guidance around, how we will deploy that funding through a diversity and equity lens. So there will be some monies available for those businesses that are minority, that are women, that are veteran owned, that are in disparate communities across Virginia. So we make sure that we hit the geographic challenges that some of our communities are facing. But even before the pandemic, Virginia last year the governor put forth an executive order 35 that included the mandate to put forward a disparity study. It's a very aggressive schedule because we know the governor doesn't have very long in office before the next election, and Virginia is a one-term governor. So that executive order last year allowed us the opportunity, my agency partnered with Department of General Services, to put forward procurement to secure someone to contract the disparity study. And so that has been done. They started in February. They are well on their way now. BBC Research and Consulting, and they have 3 subcontractors that are women and minority from Northern Virginia, Virginia Beach, and Richmond. And that team has already begun to extract data from all of our executive branch agencies across Virginia and have started the public meeting process in the last 30 days. And so we will do that through the fall.
Perfect, perfect. I think we have time for one more question, one brief question, and then we're going to bring Director Wiley back at the end for our open chat as well. One more question.
Hello, Director Wiley. We did get a question asking, where can I get forecasted opportunities or upcoming list of requests for quotes that will be released in 3, 6, or 9 months ahead?
Sure, that is on the EVA website, EVA procurement website, or eVirginia, and it is under the Department of General Services, and you will see a tab that says future procurement, future procurements. And you can drop down on that menu and it will give you a list of all of the procurements that are coming up in Virginia by secretariat and by agency. And, you know, if you need more information on that, I'd be happy to put some information in the chat.
Okay, that's perfect. We certainly want to follow up. I know it's eMaryland Marketplace and then it's EVA
Yes.
Virginia. That's fine. Director Wiley, thank you. And we will see you back at after the airline drawing as we engage into an open chat. Thank you for your information.
Thank you so much.
We're now going to bring on Director Christy Whitfield of DC Department of Small and Local Business. Good morning, Director Whitfield. Okay, we can listen to the audio. Director
Hello
Whitfield.
there. Good morning.
Okay. We got it done now. We certainly appreciate you being here and excited that we were able to round out DMV, of course, having the District of Columbia. So thank you for being here. And so first of all, we have to give a shout out to your mayor, one of the most popular mayors, of course, in the country. And we continue to talk about the Black Lives Matter Plaza. And so what's going on in the District of Columbia?
Well, you know, it all happens here, right? I mean, Washington, D.C. Well, most of it happens here except for the voting. And I think that our mayor is laser focused on that voting. And we're so grateful to have her strength of leadership for this. I think our mayor is you know, if you're a nerd as I am and are excited that that the movie of Hamilton was released over the past weekend.
Did you see it this weekend? Wasn't that awesome?
It was. But it's amazing to think that, you know, hundreds of years ago, we were, you know, fighting for taxation with representation, and, you know, 700 of your, you know, citizenry is still fighting for taxation with representation. And, you know, Mayor Bowser, and we should be calling her Governor Bowser, is still sort of shining a light on the disenfranchisement of those of us who are taxed at rates of more than 21%, or 21 states across the city. You know, we pay our taxes, you know, at a disproportionate rate, and are still receiving federal assistance as if we were a territory. And it is shameful. It's shameful.
Right.
And so,
yeah. So taxation without representation, we hope that the political climate is such that there is finally some change. But Director Whitfield, can we talk a little bit this morning about what the mayor has done? She's done a lot relative to the COVID piece. Can you highlight some things that she's done in the district in terms of recovery?
Yes, our mayor has been, you know, I would put Mayor Bowser on par with any governor across these 50 states. So Mayor Bowser, you know, has really got a strength of leadership. And if you go to our coronavirus.dc.gov website, you will see, you know, a strength of leadership and planning that shows that Washington has got, you know, a tremendous plan and is using the strength of science to keep DC on par with planning and a thoughtfulness. You know, the first thing that Mayor Bowser did was make sure that Washington, D.C. businesses were first in line in the region for federal assistance. And so Washington, D.C., was the first city in the region to apply for federal assistance for the EDIL and the PPP, and was the first to receive that help so that we could get our Washington, D.C. businesses in line for the PPP and the EDIL assistance. DSLBD worked in partnership with the SBA to help make sure that businesses could apply for those resources. And, listen, this COVID crisis has really shown the chaos that exists. Those resources are for hurricanes, and the COVID crisis is much more than a hurricane. A hurricane comes, it drops down, it goes away. And this thing has rolled across the country and the world. But, that thoughtfulness of making sure that we at least were getting our businesses in line for that help. Our Reopen DC, and I was honored to be a co-chair of the retail, one of the retail subcommittees, made sure that we were thinking thoughtfully about how we put those reopen procedures in place. Washington, D.C. is in phase 2 of this, and DSLBD worked with our main streets and our bids to create care packages. Mayor Bowser wanted to say, as you are reopening, let's make sure that we start to get some of those materials that businesses will need to be ready. So we created zones across the city, and businesses that were going to open during phase 1 were able to go online and raise their hand and say, I would like some materials. She had over 3 million masks, and I forget, but gallons and gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer and cleaning solutions that people received. We distributed over 2,000 care packages for businesses that opened in phase 1. To say this isn't everything, but this is the beginning of getting people ready for those things, and then making sure that we are really thoughtfully creating opportunities. We've got some streeteries, and we've got some open areas where we have broadened sidewalks and broadened streets and sidewalks, where we've said let's move into the thoroughfare so the restaurants can extend into the streets and
Right.
have social distancing.
Yeah, you've had to cut some of the red tape to make sure that's correct. Is that not right?
And yes, and she is not afraid to cut some red tape in the need for some progress.
Can I ask
Mayor
Bowser, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to ask a question. Go ahead.
Well, Mayor Bowser stood up a $30 million grant program. My boss, John Falchecchio, the deputy mayor for planning and economic development, they stood up a $30 million grant pool of funds for small businesses across the city, because we knew that in the first phases, people needed, they needed assistance. There's not enough money for what is needed out there, but the mayor knew that the first thing people needed was help. And this mayor understands that we don't have a lot of time to be ruminating for long periods of time, and she is a decisive mayor of action. I think that the Black Lives Matter mural in front of the White House shows that she is not afraid to take a stand and act. And I think that we're showing in Washington, D.C. that we know what we control, and we know what we need to do.
Dr. Director, Christy Whitfield, I'm sorry, can I ask a question around one of the questions that our businesses always ask is around opportunities. Where can they go to find that opportunities? And then before we open up the questions, can you then pivot and talk about you have something coming up today, the DC Business Community Town Hall, correct? Later on this evening. But can you tell us about resources and talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I think we know that we want to keep as many local dollars local as we possibly can. The mayor, every year we publish in the Green Book where local agencies are going to be spending their dollars. Last year, the mayor set an audacious goal of $910 million to be spent local. We are marching towards $1 billion of local spend. So I would say always with the Green Book, we start there. During the COVID crisis, Councilmember McDuffie has actually increased has a law saying that we want to increase some of our local spend goals to 50% on some local projects of local spend. So I would say that, watching the, OCP, I think like your previous guest, DSLBD is your advocate for small business, but I cannot ever repeat enough that DSLBD is not a procuring agency. So we do not have the contracts, but the OCP, Office of Contracts and Procurement, the OCP portal, DGS, the agencies that procure, that have those contracts, and so watching the websites.
And that's where it's posted, Director Whitfield. We have all this posted.
Right. So I'd say watching those websites, and then also always looking at the waivers. Now, we do post the waivers. So when the procuring agencies say that there are contracts where they have not been able to find local spend, and check watch the waivers, which are also posted online. Check those, because if you're a local business and you think that you can do it, you raise your hand, and that is our last chance to hold the door open for small business. So check our waivers. And let me also just say, because there is one pool of grant funds, and this is not a government pool of grant funds, but it came across, and I put it on my Twitter feed recently. But Hello Alice has a pool of grant funds, $10,000 for Black businesses. So they have a rolling pool of grant funds of $10,000 for Black businesses. And so I put that out. So we want to let people know that.
No, that's excellent. Thank you.
Because there's not a lot of grant money out there anymore. And, I think that's important. And now Mayor Bowser also put $250,000 in the DSLBD budget, and that'll start October 1st. Dream grants, and that'll be probably around $10,000 for businesses in Ward 7 and 8. And that'll start, we'll probably have a grant solicitations that'll start at the end of the summer. We'll try to be getting that money out early. We'll try to move that money as quickly as possible. DSLBD has gotten pretty good at moving grant money quickly. That money won't be available until the next fiscal, but we want to start moving those NOFAs at the end of the summer. So that will be grant money that's available from DSLBD at the end of the summer, available in the next fiscal, as long as it stays in our budget and for this year.
Perfect. We're going to open up for some question and answers, Director Whitfield, and I want to let the audience know that all this information will be made available to you. Everyone that signed up and attended, we send all this information to you. So and then we also have contact information at the end. And so, Sonia and Ken, do we have any questions for Director Whitfield?
Yes, good morning, Director Whitfield. DC does not have a true minority business program, if I recall, due to congressional action and messing into business in DC. But you have a lot of majority-owned developers around. How do you make sure that minority businesses in DC get a good share of the procurement activity in DC? And along with that, is a DC office required to get your CBE certification?
So our program in Washington, D.C. is currently race and gender neutral. So our test for Washington, D.C. is a local test. So the certified business enterprise for D.C. is that businesses have to do is with local business. And we do ask businesses to self-identify whether or not they are, they can self-identify for particular characteristics of veteran-owned and different demographics, but those are voluntary.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Yes, for Director Whitfield.
Presently, the question was about the CBE certification requiring a DC office.
I'm sorry, Ken, what was the second part of the question?
Is a DC office required to get CBE certification in DC? Can a minority business, can someone outside of DC who tries to get business in DC, are they required to have an office in DC to get your local certification?
Yes, you have to have an office in Washington, D.C. and the highest level managerial functions must be done in that office in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Ken, was that it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. Sonia, We have time for one more question.
Yeah, sorry about that. Presently, to be DSLBD certified, being Virginia SWAM certified is not permitted. Is consideration being given to remove this requirement?
No, you can't be locally based in two places. No, so you can't be locally based in Virginia and locally based in Virginia. So you're gonna have to pick.
I understand that. So listen, I do want you, before we move on to the next segment, and by the way, Director Whitfield is going to join us at the end. Tell us about DC Business Community Teletown Hall this evening.
So the teletown halls are one of the many ways that the Deputy Mayor Falchecchio wants to make sure that we are communicating with the public in as many ways as possible. The mayor, the coronavirus.dc.gov is one way that we are sort of centralizing information, but the teletown halls are a way that the deputy mayor is making sure that we are, funneling as much, another way that we're funneling a lot of information together. And so the deputy mayor has had a series of important information. And today's topic actually has to do with the, I call it as immense, but it's a really exciting topic around, educational and hospitals and the procurement that happens there. And we've been doing a lot of great work with the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development. Steve Glaudet is one of the speakers, and our own Milton Goodman from the Procurement Technical Assistance Corporation that's housed at DSLBD. He's going to be talking about the work we've been doing to really help the educational, the colleges that are within Washington and the hospitals here, how to really crack into some of those larger institutions and get the procurement into those organizations. It's going to be a great hour. It's 4 o'clock, and I really think that people should really dial in. And one other thing that we've also been doing, let me just quickly plug our DSLBD's Build Back Better series, because another thing during this COVID crisis, as we talk about sort of surviving, pivoting, and thriving, is kind of the thought process that we at DSLBD have been approaching this COVID crisis with. And there's a lot of information being thrown at people. And so we've put this short interview series together, much like these topic conversations, and we put them up on YouTube, talking to industry experts, some about some pivots and some interesting kind of light things about businesses that have been able to pivot their industry and do different things, and then some tougher conversations, bankruptcy, mergers, things that when your brain is open to those ideas, how might we be able to kind of contemplate what you might be able to think about? Because there's a lot of scary things happening out there, and
Absolutely.
And we know that these are tough times for businesses, and we know that there are scary things that need to be talked about. And we want to have uplifting conversations with businesses, and we want to be able to say to them, you can do this and you can survive through this. But we also want to say, you can also make a choice, and it is okay to make active choices in whichever direction. And sometimes resting, and sometimes merging, and sometimes stopping is fine. And we don't want to think that you can't rest, or that resting is failure. Sometimes stopping is fine, and sometimes the industry can be crushing, and sometimes stopping is winning. And we don't always let entrepreneurs rest. And let me just say, as the director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development, to any business person out there, sometimes resting so that you can heal and come back again in a different venture, stronger and wiser, is great, and you are allowed.
And Director Whitfield, that is some great sage advice. And you're right, entrepreneurs don't get a chance to often hear that they are encouraged and allowed to rest. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to our next segment and bring Director Whitfield back in our.
Thank you so much.
No, we thank you for sharing the information. Certainly appreciate you. Be back in just a moment. We're now going to bring on Karen Price Ward. And Karen's going to provide us some information, and then we're going to have a giveaway. Karen, what's going on at Southwest?
Hello, how is everybody doing? And thank you so much, Sharon and the Capital Region Supplier Development Council for the opportunity. I've learned so much from dynamic panelists. But before we give away our airline tickets today, I do want to share with your audience that Southwest Airlines, we are making a promise to our employees as well as to our customers. And we want you to know that our top priority has, and it always will be, your well-being. So we have employed very stringent cleaning and physical distancing practices to support the well-being of our employees and our customers. We're using electrostatic and anti-microbial spray treatments. We are cleaning our aircraft in between each flight, and we're using the same disinfectant that you would see at hospitals and restaurants. We're also implementing physical distancing measures by limiting the number of passengers on board. So we have made a pledge until September 30th. We will not be selling the middle seats. We have also, yes, that's a big thumbs up. We also are providing masks to our employees and to any customers that may not bring a mask. So you can learn more about the Southwest Promise. It is online at southwest.com, and we would encourage you to take a look so that when you are ready to travel, please know that we are waiting for you. We are ready to serve you. So without further ado, we do have a special winner, and today we're going to be choosing the 48th person who logged on. And 48 is special because that is the year that the Capital Region Supplier Development Council was formed. So it was established 48 years ago. And the lucky winner, you must be present, is Gary Weldon Burns. Gary Weldon Burns. If you're present, please make sure you unmute.
Gary, are you there? Because we do have a number 2.
We do have a number 2. So without further ado.
Can we see if
okay.
Is he there? Shauna, do we see him?
Yep, and so you can certainly go ahead and unmute your mic. We have unmuted you, so you can tell us how excited you are.
Maybe he's not there.
I promise he's there. He keeps raising his hand, so he's acknowledging, but just not unmuting. He keeps flicking the hand on and off. You are unmuted, sir, if you want to.
Well, good.
So we won't go into the next person. He okay.
Yes. So Gary, you are the winner of 2 round-trip tickets. They're good to our 101 destinations and our 10 countries. They have no blackout dates and no restrictions, and we hope that you will enjoy getting away. So congratulations to Gary.
And we will follow up after this. You'll hear from the team after this event. Karen, thank you so very, very much for all that you continue to do for this country relative to the commitment you've made to always pay it forward. So we have really appreciated being the official airline of having Southwest rather be the official airline of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council and the consortium. So thank you very much. And so, you know, even if you have some questions for Karen, we'll ask Karen to hang around, and we'll ask our esteemed guests to come back, and we're going to throw some questions their way. And again, may not get to your question today, but what we will do are those questions that were submitted prior to this event and those questions that were submitted in the question bank there. We will get those questions addressed and send them out when we send out the copy of this presentation, when we send out the copy of the webinar. And so we have our question, what we call them our question whisperers, if they then can let us know what some questions are for our guests.
Yes, and this is to anyone on the panel. What advice would you give minority business to prepare for the next wave of the pandemic?
Good question. Jimmy, can we start with you? Any advice there?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And I think there's 2 tracks to think about. One is if you are going to maintain your current path with the existing competency and resources that you have, whether you are a government contractor or a retailer, whatever you are, your world has just changed, okay? Just think about it. If you're a restaurant, you know what changed. If you're in a construction, you know what changed, right? So the competition becomes much more intense because the supply of opportunities have just sort of shrunk in that sector, in that space. So you have to become much more competitive. But at the same time, certain problems bring opportunities, right? I mean, if you're selling baking soda, then people are no longer eating baked goods. Now you can use a baking soda as deodorant or some cleaning agent. So you're going to have to sort of think about doing something new with what you do. Another path, I think, is where the question is directed is, if the world has drastically changed, how do I rethink? How do I reset my mindset, my paradigm, right? And I think this is what the reality has to sort of bring clear picture to the person who is pondering this question, right? You have to understand your reality, right? And what do I mean by that? Think about this. You're going to have to be radically open-minded person, and being open-minded is not just about admitting that you could be wrong about something, what you observe, but it's taking in the information that is inconsistent with what you want to conclude. So it's sort of swimming for a while in a state of not knowing but seeking to improve your lot right now, right? So reality, the nature which you are part. Think about this, things that are happening in the nature, right? You see a lion chewing up on a baby gazelle, okay? And you are just absolutely horrified by that, right? But nature really doesn't care what you think or what you see, right? If that lion eating apart the gazelle is good for the greater good, nature allows it and it repeats it again, no matter how you feel. And there's a nature in your sector as well. We call that evolution. Unless you change, adapt, you perish. It's that simple. And you don't want to be part of that a group that evolution replaces in your sector. So you're going to have to think about this fundamental question of, what do I want in my new world? And two, what is true? Meaning, what is true about your reality? And three is, how do I get what I want within the context of what is true? That question, I think, those three questions are very important things you're going to have to keep thinking. And people will tell you what to do, of course, and the people's advice are very important. But I think it's much more important, because you know yourself better than anybody else, to look at your world with your own view and see what fits you the best. Okay, so what do I want? What is true? How do I get what I want within the light of what is true?
Okay.
Let me later on, but yeah.
Very, very good advice. And it may be, if you all can hold it for just a moment, because we are running out of time. I do want to just do a wrap, and if you can hold on, and if people want to, we're at 10:31. We want to do our wrap and then maybe stay on a couple of minutes for questions if you guys have a moment. But I do want to go to the next screen, please. Let you know that what's coming up next is our next webinar, which will take place. Oh, before we do that, I'm sorry. Here are, and again, you'll get this information, the contact information for our guest today. We want to make sure that you have a way of reaching out. And then we have our next webinar information that will be actually disseminating today as well. And that will take place on July the 21st. The 9:30 bewitching hour, which we will have the conversation about prime contracting and teaming arrangements. And we'll have here fireside chat with BAE System, SAIC, Allianz Science, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. Just wanted to let you know that. And if you can stay around for just a moment or so, we want to go to the next question.
Yeah, this question is for all of the panelists, and it addresses an issue that we touched on just a little bit, but for years there's been a rumor of reciprocal certification between the three jurisdictions, Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Our MBEs consume in all three jurisdictions because of proximity. Is there any true reciprocal certification between your jurisdictions?
Right now, no.
Apparently not.
There isn't right now, but in an ideal world, yes. But everybody has its own kind of jurisdictional requirements. Some of them brought on by lawsuits, and people are very conscious about what those requirements are. And I would venture to say, and Director Wiley, you can agree with me, that's why you see small business programs. That versus, it's been a bad word over the years in terms of set aside, because race neutral is what has been successful. And I'm very proud of the Small Business Reserve Program, for example, in the state of Maryland, race neutral, but based with the premise of we can then certainly support and help minority businesses. I don't know if anybody else wanted to comment on that.
I do want to commend Virginia for something. That my office and Virginia's MWA, okay, Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, have worked together to make sure that the whoever is certified in Maryland could also participate in MWA's contract. And so we've been working together, that reciprocity. So I think we have taken the first step together, and so I'm looking forward to having a common platform for all three jurisdictions. I think that would be a good thing for small business community. Yeah.
And I think that the neutralizer is that if all three of those jurisdictions accepted Nmsdc certified MBEs. I'm just saying. Can we have another question?
Yes, this question is, what are your teams or staff members doing to ensure that all procurements with a DBE, SBE, or MBE component require a pre-bid meeting?
You need to repeat the question.
What is your team doing to assure that all procurements with DBE, SBE, MBE components require a pre-bid meeting?
I think it is required already in Maryland for certain contracts above certain threshold, okay? For certain size contracts, those contracts are under our office's review before they hit the public and so on. So I think those things are already in place in Maryland.
Okay, next question. Oh, I'm sorry, did anybody else want to comment on that? Tracy, we can't hear. No, I can't hear you.
Hey, while she's getting her mic together, next question is on infrastructure. Infrastructure projects usually are a lot of money, a lot of jobs, and a lot of business opportunity. What is the infrastructure forecast in each of your states, jurisdictions?
I mean, I hate to be first here, but the infrastructure project that's going on in Maryland with the 495 and 270, the Purple Line, the whole 9 yards. As far as what the governor has approved, the $9 billion project of expansion of 270, 495, and 295, it is the largest P3 project in the world right now. And of course, the real question is the enhancing the capacity and capability of small businesses to participate in these programs in a meaningful way. And so our office has been working with the other independent agencies. As an example, in Maryland, we have Public Service Commission that approved the offshore wind project outside of the Ocean City, right? It's $2.1 billion project. And that project must have our office's approval of a small business participation. And so those are the kind of things that we are doing to enhance and inject capacity into small business, because we all know one thing about the free market system, and that is this: the free market that we revere so much, right? And which you have two camps. One side says government intervention is required. The other side says absolutely zero government intervention. But you gotta remember, those are the wrong questions to me. I think the real question is the free market that we have, in which all these small minority businesses participate, it's our creation. So we set the rules, okay? The free market did not come from God or from nature. So I think we have role to play to inject certain capacity and capability to enhance the small business so that they can meaningfully participate, rather than just becoming a food supplier or miscellaneous, gadget supplier. I would love to see small businesses get into more capex heavy, capital expenditure heavy type of participation. So our office is very busy. So trying to create a cluster for wind, offshore wind type of projects, as well as the P3 projects that we have. But it's not been easy, I have to say, because the most important thing about the growth of any industry requires money, because money to business is like blood to our body, without which we cannot move forward. And that's one area that I think Secretary Pinder is trying to do right now, emphasize that most important piece.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Rhee. Anyone else like to comment on that? Tracy, are you up? No, I still can't hear you, unfortunately. No. Director Whitfield, were you about to say something? Okay. Can we ask another? All right, we need to see about the mics, but can we ask another question?
Yes, there is a question for Karen. Karen, what is your opinion about resuming air travel? Is traveling increasing?
We are very fortunate to have travel increasing. Of course, we're not nearly at the numbers that we would like to be, but we are seeing people, our planes are pretty full without middle seats. We are really advising people to wear their mask and to keep them on during travel. So not just to board, but also to keep them on during travel. So to answer your question, we are seeing an increase in our numbers, but we are definitely not where we have been in the past.
So it looks like we need to troubleshoot a bit. Thank you, Karen, for that. Tracy or Kristi, can you?
Okay, I think my
Your mic's
on. Okay.
Yeah. Can we try you?
I was going to say to Secretary Rhee's point, I know that, in Washington, we are working on, a series of mentor protege programs, for these, for your point exactly, Secretary, because, it becomes a chicken and egg. And I know there is a deep level of fatigue, at that commentary of, always being the food purveyor or the maintenance contract, on a large infrastructure project. And I think that, it's a chicken and egg situation, because until you get that contract, you'll never have the past experience of that contract. And then there's always what people say is the comfort level of giving somebody those contracts. And so I think we're working to try and build those contracts. And, people hate to hear the debundling. It's always more efficient to have the bigger contracts, but until we start to, debundle contracts and have smaller contracts so that people can actually build, then it will always be ever thus. I mean, I love what you're saying. These things, they're not made in nature. There's these are contracts that we make, and until we just do it, it will never happen. I mean, I love that. And I look forward to repeating those words. This is not made in nature. We can just, we have to just do it.
I appreciate that. And if I could sort of segue that, when I was in Virginia, I used to deal with larger companies. And of course, when you talk to a certain group of people, you have groups that promote socioeconomic programs such as what we have and what you have. And there are people who resist those programs, right? Because they're not completely unfair or free market-based programs. However, when you look at larger companies, because I used to recruit them, right? When they go to another country doing international trade, they act just like MBEs, okay? If they go to Japan, they would ask the Japanese government to say, hey, can you make your people buy my product, They're acting just like small business. They do it in the name of international stability, countries' relationship, And we do MBEs and SBRs in the name of social stability, okay? Because those are important part. You find the equilibrium between this, our society's haves and have-nots, and that's what this is all about. So I have no problem, supporting a small business so that they could have a greater capacity to participate, they're meaningful jobs, okay? Exactly as you imply. So thank you for making those comments, Director Whitfield. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take maybe 2 more questions if we can. I know we're troubleshooting Tracy's mic. That's the only reason why she hasn't jumped in here. Any other questions?
Yes, some of our respondents or guests today have questions about support for veterans and service-disabled veterans. What special activities are you doing to support that community?
Who's the question addressed to?
It's to anyone, anyone. Well, apparently those with mics, I guess now.
Well, in Maryland, legislators have put the program under our office's plate about a year and a half ago, okay?
I didn't know.
Yeah, so we are now trying to organize that space so that the veterans who truly deserve our respect and, they really, many of them are struggling, as you all know, with PTSD issues and so on. So our office, we are trying to encourage all 70 agencies to, number 1, have a liaison, okay, for the veterans program. And number 2, always be mindful of setting aside a particular portion for projects and opportunities that match the current competency of the veteran small business space. So we are in the process of doing that because we are at the incipient stage of organizing the space, just as we have with the MBEs and so on. Yeah.
So in Washington, I know that the veterans, again, DSLBD does not procure, but we have an Office of Veterans Affairs, and in procurement, the veterans, do receive a number of preference points in the procurement bids, so that helps, give them a little bit of an advantage in the bidding process.
Karen, what does your industry do?
Yeah, actually, we support quite a few veteran organizations. The Mission Continues, Folds of Honor, Rise Above, and specifically with Rise Above, we have tons and tons of leather that we took out of our aircraft when we were doing remodeling. So we're giving that leather free of charge to veteran organizations to repurpose so that we don't put it into the landfills and they can use it for workforce development. So if you're looking for that type of resource, we have it. You can repurpose it and sell it, and that is available for our veteran organization.
Great.
You're saying the leather from the aircraft?
Yes, so all the leather seats, we took.
And I remember
all of that.
We first, and my shameless plug here, when we did our first Get on the Plane business tour, you gave me a gift. And that was a purse, and it was made from the aircraft seats. And so our Get on the Plane, Southwest sponsors, if we fly minority businesses to another market for them to do business with other MBEs and other industries. And so we've done that a couple of times, hosted by Southwest Airlines. Tracy, are you with us? Oh, Tracy. No.
I didn't think our Made in DC program knows about that, Karen.
Yeah, the program is a sustainability program, and so we call it Repurpose with Purpose, and organizations are making all kinds of things. We work with the indigenous people in Mexico who produce products, and products are produced all across the country. You can see a list on our website, and specifically the couple of veteran organizations that we serve, that we work with.
Wow.
Perfect.
There's something new today. That's great.
Isn't that's a great takeaway, right? Yes. Listen, we've gone 47 minutes over. I certainly appreciate you all hanging in there. Is there another burning question before we let our guests go? And you know what? I jokingly said this during our tech check yesterday, but I believe that we can continue this rhythm and have a cocktail conversation for folks. I'd like to engage you guys, maybe not in the morning, but in the afternoon, in the late afternoon,
Yeah.
have another conversation to kind of keep on, because we can just keep talking and talking. But I think it's real important that we had the top advocates from the DMV, and to look at what the synergies, how we are interlocked, those common threads, and to be and we're led by three of the most visible and effective leaders across the country. And so I think it's worth another conversation. So I hope that you will indulge and engage. So thank you so very, very much. And I'm going to give everybody who's hung in there with us the remainder of your day. And thank you for, as this is like, I guess if this was Bill Maher or somebody, this is the after show.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a great, great day, and be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you, team. Thank you, CRMSDC.
Bye.
And Graybow Media,
Bye, all.
actually helps in terms of our line producers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shauna,